The silence of Earth's skies was shattered when the first wave of Thar warships entered the solar system. Their ships, massive and sleek, cut through the void like predatory beasts hunting their prey. They came without warning, appearing as if from nowhere, cloaking themselves in stealth technology, until the very last moment. The initial shockwave of their arrival rattled the world to its core. The Thar didn't negotiate. They didn't even ask. They simply demanded humanity's immediate surrender. The humans, caught off guard and still reeling from the sudden breach of their defenses, scrambled to prepare. Military leaders were hastily called into action, the world's governments meeting in emergency sessions. But the truth was clear. Earth's defenses were no match for the might of the Thar. Humanity's military, though advanced, was still young and untested compared to the vast empire of the Thar. The Thar's ships were designed for war, bristling with weaponry that could reduce entire cities to rubble. Their soldiers, tall, imposing figures clad in dark armor, were legendary in battle, with strength and endurance far beyond human capabilities. However, humanity had one thing that the Thar did not: adaptability. In the depths of Earth's military complex, a project long kept in secrecy was suddenly thrust into the light. The Apex program, an experimental initiative to create a new kind of soldier, had been in development for years. It was a gamble, one that required total secrecy. The program's objective wasn't just to enhance physical strength. It sought to elevate human intellect, resilience, and combat strategy to superhuman levels. Major Sarah Knight was chosen to be the first test subject. Her credentials were impeccable: a decorated officer with unmatched leadership skills, a tactical genius on the battlefield, and someone who was always able to think outside of the box. She was the perfect candidate for the program. When Sarah stepped into the lab, the Apex suit lay waiting for her, a shining, sleek exoskeleton that could enhance her body's natural strength, speed, and agility. But it wasn't just the physical upgrades that made the suit dangerous. It was the neural link, allowing Sarah to think faster, process information quicker, and make split-second decisions that would normally take hours of calculation. The suit itself was an engineering marvel. It was equipped with energy shields that could withstand direct hits from enemy weapons and weapons of its own, plasma blades, energy rifles, and retractable claws capable of slicing through metal. But the true power of the Apex suit lay in Sarah's mind. The suit's AI interface worked in perfect harmony with her brain, augmenting her thoughts and movements, making her faster, more precise, and far more lethal than any ordinary human soldier. As she stood there, ready to don the suit, Sarah felt a strange mix of fear and excitement. The stakes were higher than ever. She wasn't just representing Earth's military. She was carrying the hopes of humanity itself. If she failed, humanity might not survive. With a deep breath, Sarah stepped into the suit, and the world seemed to fade away. The suit closed around her, sealing her in. As the neural link activated, she could feel the power surge through her body. She could hear the faint hum of the suit's energy systems coming online, feel the precision of her movements as if she were connected to the very heartbeat of the machine. The transformation had begun. The moment Sarah's training began, it was clear she was no longer just a soldier. She was something more, something far greater. As she completed her first combat simulation, she moved with a fluidity and grace that seemed almost unnatural. She dodged enemy fire, countered attacks, and outmaneuvered automated defense systems with ease. Her tactical genius, combined with the suit's enhancements, made her a force unlike anything the world had ever seen. But the true test was yet to come. Word of the Thar's arrival spread quickly across the globe, and humanity realized the battle for survival had begun. As Sarah stood before her superiors, her mission was clear. She would lead the first human strike against the Thar. The war had begun, and humanity's ultimate war machine was ready to make its mark. The Thar arrived with a chilling finality, their ships descending on Earth like a swarm of locusts, blotting out the sun. The world's defense systems, once thought to be impenetrable, proved to be nothing more than a faint nuisance against the alien invaders. Governments scrambled to react, but the Cthar were already inside Earth's atmosphere. The military had no time to prepare for an invasion of this scale. A wave of panic swept across the globe as cities went dark, power grids failed, and the sound of sirens echoed through the streets. Sarah Knight, encased in the sleek Apex suit, was among the first to witness the full scale of the threat. Standing before a holographic map of the world's military positions, she couldn't ignore the looming presence of the Cthar fleet above. Their ships moved with precision, their coordinated strikes devastating Earth's defenses. But Sarah wasn't daunted. The Apex suit pulsed with energy, and a deep sense of purpose filled her. This wasn't just a battle for Earth's survival, it was a chance to prove that humanity could face overwhelming odds and emerge victorious. As Earth's leaders convened in bunkers below, the generals made a desperate call. They knew they had to take action now, or humanity would be lost. The plan was simple. Sarah and her team of specially trained soldiers, enhanced by the Apex program, would lead the first counteroffensive against the Cthar fleet. Their mission was to hit hard and fast, using guerrilla tactics and technology to strike at the heart of the invaders before they could set up their invasion force. The Apex suit wasn't just a weapon, it was a symbol of humanity's defiance. The Cthar might be technologically superior, but they didn't understand human resolve. Sarah, now a walking weapon of war, would prove that. Under the cover of darkness, Sarah and her team launched their attack. The first strike came at a Cthar communications relay situated deep within one of their ships. The humans moved quickly, using the shadows of ruined buildings and abandoned military installations to conceal their movements. Sarah's enhanced senses, thanks to the neural link with the suit, allowed her to sense the smallest movements, anticipating enemy patrols, and leading her team with unmatched precision. The Cthar, accustomed to intimidating and overwhelming their enemies, were caught off guard. They expected humanity to cower, to surrender. Instead, they found themselves facing a small but fiercely determined group of soldiers who fought with the ingenuity of a species that had survived countless hardships across millennia. Sarah moved like a shadow, her movements too fast for the Cthar to track. Her team, armed with experimental human weapons, plasma rifles, EMP grenades, and high-tech explosives, tore through the enemy defenses with surgical strikes. Each attack was calculated, precise, and relentless. They were outnumbered, but they didn't need numbers. They had something far more valuable: the ability to adapt. The first few skirmishes were a blur of violence and chaos, but Sarah remained focused. She led her squad into the heart of a Cthar landing zone, where their advanced weapons systems were deployed. The humans had only one chance to cripple the Cthar's operation before they fully established a foothold on Earth. Sarah, her suit glowing with energy, dove into the fray, her strength amplified by the technology coursing through her. Each punch she delivered sent shockwaves through the Cthar ranks, her plasma blades slicing through their armor as though it were paper. By the time the sun began to rise, the humans had achieved their first victory. The Cthar's communications relay was destroyed, and their command structure had been thrown into disarray. The first major battle, though small in scale, was a monumental success. The Cthar had underestimated humanity, and now they were beginning to realize the true extent of what they were up against. However, this victory came at a cost. The Cthar retaliated with fury, launching a series of devastating counterattacks that left parts of Earth in ruins. The humans had proven their resilience, but the Cthar were relentless. For every victory, there were losses: loved ones torn away by alien weapons, cities destroyed, lives shattered. In the aftermath, as Sarah surveyed the battlefield with the remnants of her team, she knew that the fight was far from over. The Cthar had learned a lesson, and they would come back stronger. But Sarah's resolve had only deepened. This was just the beginning, and she would stop at nothing to protect humanity from this deadly new enemy. The storm was far from silent. It was only just beginning. In the wake of their first major victory, the humans celebrated, But the euphoria was short-lived. The Cthar, enraged by their failure, escalated their campaign. Earth's cities lay in ruins, the once vibrant world now struggling to hold its ground against the overwhelming alien force. The Cthar were relentless. Every day brought new attacks, and their forces grew more determined with each passing hour. But humanity, and Sarah Knight, had learned something invaluable. The Apex program was not just about brute force. It was about strategy, adaptability, and the human ability to think beyond the obvious. Sarah was not merely a weapon. She was a strategist, a leader who could inspire those around her to think creatively and take calculated risks. Earth's military began to understand that, despite their technological inferiority, they had the one advantage that could make all the difference: their capacity to adapt and innovate in the heat of battle. Sarah's role as humanity's leader grew. As she traveled across the planet, coordinating resistance efforts and training new squads of Apex-enhanced soldiers, her reputation spread. Her name became synonymous with hope. The world began to rally, and Earth's scattered forces, though weak, began to form pockets of resistance. It wasn't enough to win, but it was enough to survive. The Cthar, initially confident in their overwhelming might, started to show cracks. Their heavy-handed approach had alienated the few neutral species they had once dominated into cooperation with humanity. The alien races, long oppressed by the Cthar, now saw the humans not as weak prey, but as potential allies, beacons of resistance in a galaxy that had long been under the Cthar's thumb. While the humans worked to forge these new alliances, the Cthar found themselves facing an unexpected problem. Their massive fleet, once a symbol of invincibility, began to experience sabotage. Ships vanished without a trace. Supplies were sabotage. Entire Cthar bases were destroyed in a series of highly coordinated attacks. The Cthar had become paranoid, suspicious of traitors in their ranks. They could not comprehend that a species as small as humanity had the ability to disrupt their empire so thoroughly. Sarah, deep in the heart of the war, stood as humanity's greatest asset. Her team had grown to include not just Apex-enhanced soldiers, but also engineers, hackers, and guerrilla tacticians. They had learned to move in the shadows, striking when the Cthar least expected it. Each successful mission bolstered the human cause, building momentum as they chipped away at the Cthar's resources. One night, while Sarah and her team were strategizing in an underground resistance base, a transmission came in from one of Earth's newly allied species, the Star. They had intel on a Cthar flagship, the Tyrant's Wrath, that would be passing through a narrow sector of space near Earth. The flagship was carrying critical supplies and weapons, resources that the humans could not afford to let fall into the hands of the Cthar. The mission was clear: sabotage the flagship before it could reach its destination. Sarah's heart raced. It was a dangerous move, but they were running out of time. The Cthar's retaliatory strikes were growing more brutal. Earth's cities could not survive another round of sustained bombardment. This was their chance to hit back hard. As Sarah prepared her team for the mission, she found herself reflecting on how far humanity had come. They were no longer the underdogs. The Apex program had given them the edge they needed to fight back, but it was their indomitable will to survive that made them a force to be reckoned with. The Cthar had underestimated the humans once before. Now they were learning the hard way that humanity was a threat they couldn't simply crush underfoot. With a deep breath, Sarah donned the Apex suit once again. She knew the stakes. This mission could either cripple the Cthar's hold on Earth or lead them to victory, but it was a risk worth taking. As the squad moved into position, the night air was thick with anticipation. The humans were no longer just fighting to survive. They were fighting to win. And as the first sparks of conflict ignited in the darkness of space, Sarah's thoughts were clear. This war was far from over, but humanity would no longer be underestimated. The tides were beginning to shift. The mission to sabotage the Cthar flagship, the Tyrant's Wrath, was a gamble, but it was one that had to succeed. Sarah and her team navigated through the dark expanse of space, their craft moving like ghosts, slipping through the Kthar's surveillance networks undetected. The Kthar, growing increasingly paranoid, had tightened their security, but humanity's ingenuity and ability to adapt were proving to be their greatest weapon. Sarah's heart raced as the flagship loomed ahead, a massive, menacing ship that looked like a floating fortress, bristling with weaponry and protected by a formidable fleet of smaller vessels. This wasn't just about striking at the heart of the Kthar military. It was about making the statement. Humanity would no longer cower. They would fight back with every ounce of creativity, resourcefulness, and determination they had. "Ready, Commander." A voice crackled over the comms. It was Lieutenant Rios, one of Sarah's most trusted officers, his voice laced with both excitement and tension. Sarah glanced at her team, all poised and prepared for the mission. Their faces were hard, focused, each of them wearing the same expression. Determined, unwilling to fail. They were the tip of humanity's spear, and they knew what was at stake. "We move fast. We hit hard. We leave no trace," Sarah ordered, her voice steady, filled with the kind of resolve that could only come from a leader who had been to the edge and back. The plan was simple, but incredibly risky. The Kthar flagship was carrying vital supplies, ammunition, reinforcements, and most critically, a new type of biological weapon that could wipe out entire populations in a matter of days. If the humans could destroy it before it reached its destination, they would cripple the Kthar's operations on Earth and send a message that would echo across the galaxy. The team's stealth shuttles, equipped with cloaking technology, approached the flagship undetected. Sarah's team, armed with cutting-edge explosives and EMP devices, was ready to breach the ship's defenses. But they weren't just going to destroy a few key systems. They were going to break the very core of the Kthar's military might. This was more than a strike. It was an act of defiance that could shift the course of the war. As they infiltrated the ship, it became clear just how much the Kthar had underestimated the human spirit. The ship's corridors were silent, too quiet. The Kthar had been so certain of their dominance that they hadn't anticipated the humans' ability to slip past their advanced security. Sarah's team moved like shadows, bypassing security systems with ease, planting explosives in critical systems, and ensuring that no one would escape once the detonation sequence was activated. But the deeper they went, the more perilous the mission became. They were running out of time. The Kthar would soon realize their flagship was under attack, and once that happened, the entire fleet would converge on their location. The humans had to be out, and fast. As Sarah planted the final charge in the ship's main reactor, her mind raced. They were no longer following the traditional rules of war. They weren't fighting like the Kthar expected them to. Humans didn't have the raw firepower or numbers to match the Kthar's might head-on, so they had to be smarter. This mission was the perfect example of that, breaking the rules, using unconventional tactics, and turning the Kthar's overconfidence into their own downfall. "Charges set. Let's move," Sarah said, her voice clipped, urgent. But just as they were about to retreat to their extraction point, alarms blared throughout the ship. The Kthar had discovered the sabotage. The countdown had begun, and the humans had only minutes to escape. A loud explosion echoed through the halls of the flagship as Sarah's team sprinted toward the extraction point, their path illuminated by flashing red lights. The ship groaned as the first explosion destabilized its core, and the Kthar reacted with a fury that only heightened the tension. Sarah's mind worked in overdrive, analyzing their escape routes as the team raced through the corridors. The Kthar were closing in. She could feel the pressure building, but she refused to panic. This wasn't just about surviving. It was about winning. They would get out, and they would leave behind a massive dent in the Kthar's plans. The final moments were a blur. As the team boarded the escape shuttle, the flagship erupted in a massive explosion, sending shockwaves through space. Sarah watched as the tyrant's wrath buckled and shattered, the flames of its destruction lighting up the darkness. The humans had struck hard, and they had struck true. The escape shuttle surged into the void, and for a brief moment, Sarah allowed herself to breathe. The mission had been a success, and humanity had once again defied the odds. But as they made their way back to Earth, she knew that the Cthar would retaliate with all their might. The battle was far from over. But one thing was certain: humanity was no longer playing by anyone's rules but their own. The destruction of the tyrant's wrath sent shockwaves through the Cthar fleet, and the effects were immediate. The Cthar had underestimated humanity before, but this time their failure was broadcast across the galaxy. Their most formidable flagship, their pride and joy, had been destroyed by a handful of humans. The Cthar, for the first time in this war, felt fear. Their once ironclad confidence was shattered, and cracks appeared in their arrogance. Back on Earth, Sarah and her team were heralded as heroes, but the victory came with a heavy toll. The mission had been successful, but the Cthar were not a species to simply fold under pressure. Their retaliation would be swift and brutal. As news of the attack spread, the Cthar redoubled their efforts, launching more devastating strikes against Earth. Cities that had once been on the front lines of resistance were reduced to smoldering ruins. The Cthar wanted to make an example of humanity, erase any notion that the humans could fight back. In the aftermath, Sarah stood in a command center surrounded by the remnants of Earth's military leadership. The celebration of their victory was over. The gravity of what was to come now weighed on their shoulders. They had won a battle, but the war was far from over. Humanity had no illusions about the path ahead. The Cthar would come for them harder, faster, and with more force. "The Cthar won't stop until we're wiped out," General Hawks said, his voice grave. He was a seasoned veteran, and even he knew that the Cthar weren't the kind of enemy that could be stopped with one successful strike. "We've made them angry. They'll retaliate tenfold." Sarah nodded, her mind racing. She knew that the fight was only beginning. The Cthar were organized, strategic, and merciless. They didn't just want victory. They wanted to crush the human spirit, to make sure that the story of their failure was buried so deep that no one would ever question their superiority again. But Sarah knew something the Cthar didn't understand. Humanity wasn't defined by power. It was defined by its spirit, its ability to adapt and fight back against seemingly insurmountable odds. "We can't stop here," Sarah said, her voice steady, but filled with the resolve of someone who had seen what humanity was capable of. "We need to keep pushing. We need to take the fight to them. No matter what it costs, we need to make sure that Earth is never fully under their control." Her words rang out, and for the first time in weeks, the leaders around her seemed to find a spark of hope. They had fought and bled for this moment, and Sarah's unwavering conviction reignited the fire that had been dulled by constant defeat. She wasn't just a soldier. She was a symbol of everything humanity stood for. Her team, the soldiers enhanced by the Apex program, were becoming more than just elite warriors. They were the face of resistance, the vanguard of humanity's struggle for survival. As the hours turned into days, humanity's response began to take shape. The remnants of the Cthar fleet were damaged, and their forces were spread thin across Earth. Sarah and her team, now leaders of a global resistance, started planning the next phase of the war, striking directly at the heart of the Cthar Empire. The Cthar's control over Earth was tenuous. With their flagship gone, the Cthar command structure was in disarray. Now was the time to strike back. Humanity had already proven that they could stand up to the Cthar. Now it was time to show them that they could fight back and win. Sarah's next mission was clear. A Cthar supply hub located deep within a heavily fortified region on Earth needed to be destroyed. It was the key to their reinforcements, and cutting it off could delay the Cthar's ability to sustain their war effort. But as the intelligence reports came in, it became evident that this would be one of the most dangerous missions yet. The Cthar were doubling their efforts to secure this vital point, and the resistance had no choice but to push forward. "There's no turning back now," Sarah said to her team, her voice steady. "We'll hit them hard. This is where we make our stand." The mission would be a test, not just of their technology and tactics, but of their will to survive. The Cthar had been relentless, but humanity had been unyielding in the face of extinction. The tides of war were shifting, and Sarah knew that no matter the cost, humanity would fight until the last breath. As they prepared to embark on their next mission, Sarah felt a surge of determination. The Cthar might be powerful, but they had underestimated one key factor: the human will to fight. And now, it was time for humanity to remind the galaxy that no one, not even an empire like the Cthar, could crush the spirit of humankind. The days following Sarah's declaration were marked by a sense of urgency and resolve. The Cthar were relentless in their campaign, but humanity's will was now a force that could not be ignored. The next mission, targeting the Cthar supply hub, was more than a tactical strike. It was a turning point. If they succeeded, they could cripple the Cthar's ability to sustain their invasion. But if they failed, the cost could be catastrophic. Sarah stood before the gathered group of soldiers, each one wearing the Apex suit with a quiet determination. The atmosphere in the command center was tense, but there was no fear in the air. Only the quiet buzz of soldiers preparing for battle and the soft hum of machinery as they loaded their gear. They were ready. "We strike at dawn," Sarah said, her voice cutting through the silence. "We hit fast, we hit hard, and we leave no room for error. This isn't just a mission. This is our stand." The supply hub was located in the heart of a Cthar-controlled city, a fortress surrounded by layers of defense systems, patrolled by elite Cthar warriors. It was the last line of supply for the invaders. If they could destroy it, the Cthar would be left in disarray, forced to divert resources to other fronts, weakening their grip on Earth. But the hub wasn't just a building. It was a symbol of the Cthar's control, and it would be heavily guarded. Sarah's team, led by her strategic expertise and enhanced by the Apex suits, was tasked with infiltrating the area under cover of night. The plan was to bypass the enemy's outer defenses, disable their surveillance systems, and hit the supply hub before the Cthar could react. But even the most precise plans could go awry, and Sarah knew that there would be no room for mistakes. "We're not just fighting for survival anymore," Sarah told her squad before the mission began. "We're fighting for the future of every person on this planet. We're fighting for every life the Cthar would take from us." With those words, they set out. The journey to the heart of the Cthar stronghold was treacherous. The team moved through desolate streets, taking cover in the shadows of collapsed buildings and destroyed structures. The sounds of distant explosions and the occasional Cthar patrol kept them on edge, but they pressed forward, knowing that they had only one chance to strike. As they neared the supply hub, the air seemed to thrum with the weight of impending conflict. The Cthar forces were well aware of the potential for human resistance, and they had fortified the hub accordingly. The human team used their skills, enhanced by the Apex suits, to bypass Cthar sentries, cutting them down swiftly when necessary and making sure their presence went unnoticed. The final stretch to the supply hub was the most perilous. The team had to infiltrate the core defenses, a series of force fields, automated turrets, and Cthar warriors on high alert. The first wave of attack was swift, with Sarah and her team setting off a series of EMP bursts to disable the force fields. The Cthar responded quickly, but the humans were faster. Every move was calculated, a dance of precision and strategy. "Charge set," Lieutenant Rios's voice came through the comms, steady and calm, even in the chaos. "Detonators ready," Sarah confirmed, signaling the team to prepare for the final phase. They had one shot at this. Sarah's heart pounded in her chest as she keyed in the final sequence to initiate the detonation. The supplies, the Cthar's last hope for a sustained invasion, would be obliterated. The explosions would take out not only the hub itself, but also any remaining Cthar reinforcements within a large radius. But as the countdown began, something unexpected happened. A deep rumble shook the ground beneath them. It wasn't just the sound of an impending explosion. It was the sound of the Cthar's retaliation. The alarms blared, and moments later, a massive Cthar war machine, an imposing, heavily armored unit, emerged from a hidden hangar nearby. "Incoming," shouted Sarah as she saw the machine deploy. It was unlike anything the humans had encountered before, armored to the point of near invulnerability, with massive plasma cannons mounted on its shoulders. The Cthar had expected a counterattack and had prepared a final devastating weapon to stop the humans. The team reacted immediately, but they were outgunned. The war machine's cannon fired, blasting apart a nearby building and sending a shockwave through the streets. They had to act fast. This could be their last chance. "Focus fire on the joints," Sarah commanded. "We need to disable it now." The team moved quickly, utilizing every weapon at their disposal. EMP grenades, plasma rifles, and every ounce of human ingenuity were thrown into the fray. The Cthar war machine retaliated with brutal force, but it was clear that the human team was not backing down. The Apex suits gave them the strength and agility to dodge the devastating blasts, but only just. "Detonators set. Get out now," Sarah yelled. The final detonations tore through the supply hub, shaking the ground and sending a cloud of debris into the air. The Cthar war machine lurched, its internal systems overloaded by the shockwaves of the explosion. It fell to the ground with a resounding crash, its massive frame crumpled. As the smoke cleared and the rumbling subsided, Sarah's team stood victorious. The Cthar had been dealt a crushing blow, and humanity had proven once again that they were not to be underestimated. The Cthar would never forget this moment. The moment when their once impenetrable grip on Earth was torn apart by a handful of determined humans. But even in victory, Sarah knew this was only a single battle in an ongoing war. The Cthar would retaliate. But now, humanity had a chance, not just to survive, but to win. And Sarah Knight, the ultimate war machine, would lead them every step of the way. The destruction of the Cthar supply hub was a resounding success, but the victory came with consequences. The Cthar, once confident in their dominance, were now shaken to their core. Earth had just proven that even their most fortified assets were vulnerable, and that realization had sent ripples through the alien empire. It wasn't just a military defeat, it was a blow to their pride, their sense of invincibility. But the Cthar were not a species to simply retreat in the face of adversity. They would come back with even greater force. Sarah Knight knew this all too well. As she stood in the war room, the weight of their success and the looming threat of retaliation pressed heavily on her shoulders. The cheers of victory from her team echoed in the background, but Sarah remained focused, her mind racing through every possible scenario. The Cthar would not let this go. The next phase of the war would be far more brutal. "We've made them angry," General Hawks said, his voice tight with apprehension. "They'll come at us with everything they've got. We've hurt them, but we're not out of the woods yet." Sarah nodded, her gaze fixed on the holographic map of Earth's remaining Cthar holdings. The Cthar were regrouping, reorganizing, and bringing in reinforcements from their homeworld. It was only a matter of time before the full force of their war machine descended upon Earth. They needed to act quickly. "Get me everything we have on their reinforcements," Sarah ordered, her tone sharp. "I want to know where their fleets are gathering, and how soon they can hit us." The data came in quickly, and it painted a grim picture. The Cthar were not just a fleet of warships, they were an empire, and they had allies across the galaxy. Despite the humans' recent victories, the Cthar's sheer numbers would eventually overwhelm Earth's defenses. But Sarah refused to let despair take hold. The human spirit, the indomitable will to survive, had already proven itself capable of defying the odds. They could do it again. "We need to hit them before they fully mobilize," Sarah said, eyes narrowing as she studied the map. "If we can disrupt their fleet movements, we can delay their offensive long enough to buy Earth time. It's the only chance we have to prepare for the final push." Her team was already gathering for the mission. The objective was clear: infiltrate and sabotage one of the Cthar's key orbital shipyards, a site crucial to their fleet's repair and resupply operations. If they could take it out, the Kthar's ability to rebuild their fleet would be significantly crippled. The loss of the tyrant's wrath was just the beginning. This would be the death blow they needed to shift the tide of the war. "Let's do this," Sarah said, locking eyes with her team. They were more than soldiers now. They were symbols of resistance, hope, and the human will to fight. They would not go quietly into the night. The mission to the Kthar shipyard was one of the most dangerous yet. Positioned in orbit around a gas giant, the facility was surrounded by layers of Kthar patrols and advanced defense systems. The humans had no choice but to strike with everything they had. A plan was devised to infiltrate the facility under the cover of a large solar storm. The storm would disrupt the Kthar's long-range sensors, providing the perfect opportunity to slit past their outer defenses. The team suited up, the familiar hum of the Apex technology surging through their bodies. Sarah felt the weight of the suit's enhanced strength, the increased speed, and the armor's protection. It wasn't just a tool, it was an extension of herself, a reflection of the fierce, unyielding determination that had driven her to this point. As their shuttle sped toward the shipyard, Sarah couldn't help but think back on how far humanity had come. They had been on the brink of annihilation, but they had risen from the ashes, fueled by the fire of survival. And now, they were striking back with a vengeance. The shuttle broke through the storm clouds, and the massive Kthar shipyard came into view. An enormous station that stretched across the void, covered in scaffolding and vessels under construction. The defenses were heavy, but the humans had learned to adapt, to strike with speed and precision. Sarah's team landed on a hidden docking bay on the far side of the facility, and with a quick scan, they verified their location. Time was running out. "We move fast, hit the critical systems, and get out before they know what hit them," Sarah ordered, her voice calm but laced with urgency. As they infiltrated the shipyard, the hum of the Kthar's machinery surrounded them. They had to move quickly, planting explosives on key systems, the power cores, the reactor, and the communications relay. Each step brought them closer to their goal, but the danger was real. The Kthar had increased their patrols since the last sabotage, and it wouldn't be long before the humans were discovered. "Charges set," Rios reported, his voice steady. "Execute the plan." "Now," Sarah commanded. The explosion that followed was deafening. The shipyard's reactors ruptured, sending shockwaves through the facility. The Kthar would not be able to repair their ships in time for the coming battle. But as the humans made their escape, a new realization dawned on Sarah. This mission was only a precursor. The real storm, the final confrontation, was still to come. And this time, Earth wouldn't just be fighting for survival, it would be fighting for its place in the galaxy. The Kthar had made a grave mistake underestimating humanity. Now they would learn just how fierce the human spirit could be. The war was far from over, but humanity was no longer on the defensive. It was time to take the fight to the Kthar and show them that they had awakened something they could never extinguish. The storm was coming, and it would not be silenced. The Kthar were reeling. Their most crucial shipyards were in ruins, their reinforcements delayed, and their once pristine reputation as an unstoppable force was now in tatters. The human resistance, led by Sarah Knight, had proven that even in the face of overwhelming odds, humanity's will to survive and to fight back was an unbreakable force. The Kthar had underestimated them, and that mistake would cost them everything. The time for subtlety had passed. Sarah and her team had carried out their sabotage operations with precision and brilliance, but now the war was about to reach its climax. Earth had become the heart of the conflict, the last bastion of resistance in a war that spanned galaxies. And in this final phase, humanity would make its last stand, not just for survival, but for its future. Sarah stood at the front of a massive war council in a heavily fortified underground bunker, the last line of defense against the Kthar's inevitable assault. Earth's military leaders, the brightest minds in human strategy and combat, were gathered around a table cluttered with holographic maps and tactical data. The Kthar's final offensive was imminent. Everything they had built toward this moment was about to come to a head. We've taken their supply hubs. We've crippled their shipyards. But now, they'll send everything they've got, General Hawks said, his voice tinged with grim resolve. This isn't just a battle for Earth anymore. It's a battle for the survival of humanity as a species. Sarah nodded, understanding the gravity of the situation. She knew the stakes. If they lost this final stand, the Kthar would seize Earth and wipe out every trace of human resistance. This battle was all or nothing. The Kthar had gathered their fleets, an armada of terrifying ships, each one brimming with firepower that could obliterate entire cities with a single strike. But Sarah had one advantage they didn't: the relentless human spirit. We've already proven they're not invincible, Sarah said, her voice steady but with an edge of conviction. We've taken down the tyrant's wrath. We've crippled their shipyards. Now we take the fight to their fleet. We strike hard, and we strike fast. Her plan was simple but deadly. With the Kthar's ships vulnerable after their failed attempt to regroup, the humans would launch a two-pronged attack. A small, elite strike force would board the Kthar's flagship, the Warlord, while the rest of the human fleet, bolstered by reinforcements from Allied forces, would launch a full-scale offensive on the Kthar armada. The goal was to destroy the Kthar command ship, the heart of their invasion fleet, and bring down their entire operation in one devastating blow. The human fleet, led by Sarah herself, began to mobilize. Ships of every size and class, some patched together from the remnants of their own destroyed vessels, others newly upgraded with salvaged Kthar technology, launched from Earth's orbit. The battlefield would be set in deep space, near a massive asteroid field that provided both cover and obstacles for the combatants. Sarah's team, the core of the human resistance, was ready. The apex soldiers, augmented with the most advanced technology humanity had developed, were prepared for the most daring mission of their lives. They would board the Warlord, the flagship of the Kthar, and fight their way to its control center, where they would deploy the final bomb that would end the Kthar's control over Earth once and for all. We are humanity's last hope, Sarah said, standing in the midst of her squad. We've come this far, and we're not stopping now. This is our moment. We will show the Kthar what it means to face a species that refuses to surrender. The moment the battle began, it was clear this would be the fight of a lifetime. The Kthar, enraged and desperate, responded with every weapon in their arsenal. Plasma beams lit up the sky as ships on both sides clashed in a chaotic, explosive storm. The human fleet fought fiercely, using every tactic they had learned over the years to outmaneuver and outthink the Kthar. Despite being outnumbered, humanity's adaptability and ingenuity began to turn the tide. As Sarah's team boarded the Warlord, they encountered the full wrath of the Kthar. They fought through narrow corridors and dense security, their weapons blazing with deadly precision. The ship's halls reverberated with the sounds of battle: explosions, plasma blasts, and the clashing of alien and human forces. Each step forward was hard-won, but with every room they cleared, the Kthar's grip on their ship weakened. Finally, after what felt like an eternity, Sarah and her team reached the central control room. The Kthar commander, a towering alien whose cold, calculating gaze could freeze the blood of even the bravest soldiers, stood waiting. He was not surprised to see them, and in his eyes was a glimmer of something that almost looked like respect. "You are persistent, human," he said, his voice a low growl. "But it will not matter. Earth is already lost." "Not today," Sarah replied, her voice calm but filled with steely determination. With a swift motion, she detonated the bomb. The explosion that followed rocked the Warlord to its very core. The ship shuddered, its systems failing as the final blow was struck. Sarah and her team barely escaped as the ship began to break apart around them. The Kthar fleet, without their command structure, was thrown into chaos. The human fleet pressed their advantage, launching a final, decisive strike that obliterated the remnants of the Cathar Armada. The battle was over. Earth was saved. Humanity had done what no one had thought possible. They had taken on an empire that spanned galaxies and emerged victorious. The Cathar, broken and scattered, would never again threaten Earth. Sarah stood among the ruins of the warlord, watching as the remnants of the Cathar fleet drifted into the void. She felt the weight of what they had accomplished settle in. It had been a long road, full of sacrifice, loss, and hardship. But humanity had emerged stronger than ever, and as she looked out across the stars, she knew one thing for certain. This was just the beginning. The human race had proven that no matter the odds, they would never give up. The galaxy had just witnessed the birth of a new era, one where humanity would stand proud and unyielding, ready to face whatever the future held. And Sarah Knight, the ultimate war machine, would be there to lead them into it.